Hello, one and all, and welcome to chapter 4 of season 2 of Frontiers of Eberron, Home on the Strange. I am your dungeon master, Michael St. Gregory, alongside the heroes of Wormwatch. Here they are, but how long will they be? Only time will tell. Is that too ominous? Too threatening? No? Good? Just enough? Okay. But let's not dwell on introductions or pleasantries of the matter, for there are many things to take care of, for it is time to be diced. Let's ride. In the dwellings of the abandoned Institute of Arcane Technologies in the town of Wormwatch, several 100 feet below the surface, the party of Evan, Ivara, Silas, Mira, and the reunited Holiday alongside Sheriff Copper Brass stand together in a room that has been emptied out and is now filled with 5 uh, practice dummies of sorts. Let's roll initiative.
For serious?
Surprise.
Oh
God.
I'm upset.
That's 19.
I'm more upset.
20.
No, you're not.
15.
All right, let's have them in the chat so I can follow. All right. What you are in is essentially a larger clearing out of this one warehouse space where several automatons have been emptied of their essentially integral parts to be only living armor shells. Each of them, has a for mechanic purposes, I will say you will all know automatically that the goal is to hit a AC of 17, being that you know these as practice dummies, and you're using these abilities that you have been training over the last, say, 48 hours onto these individuals that have been set up just for your particular skill set to use. So, we are going to start with the top of the order with Evan.
Okay.
You're going to find that these have no retaliation. What they are meant is simply as target practice for you to use your strongest ability of your newfound power.
Okay. Okay. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I don't.
So if you have a high spell slot and you know it has a lot of damage with it, I say go for it.
Okay. I'm not designed for damage.
Exactly.
But okay, if I can, then
It doesn't necessarily have to be damaging. It can be something that just has a great effect on it. This is as if you are using it for the first time, and or rather practicing having used it, and now you're finally getting its effectiveness.
okay. Then it's in her wheelhouse, so I'm going to have her use conjure animals.
Okay.
Which is something that she hasn't done before. So I can conjure challenge rating. Oh, there's a list. Thank God. Okay. So higher level. It's the 4th level slot. So I'm gonna summon. She's gonna summon a Why not? She's gonna summon a rhinoceros.
Hell yes. And all this while, we now flash back to the moments before when you were learning this spell, having discovered this ability through the exercises and the reading and the training that you have been going through intensively over the past 2 days with the former director of this institute, as he has been guiding you to find these to broaden your mind in terms of your zoological understanding of beasts beyond what you've been raised in, and you begin with what you're familiar with stronger steer and ox and horses, until eventually you become courageous enough to build your way towards larger beasts like bears and mountain lions. And even then, you're encouraged to go even further as you try to conjure claw feet that you've seen wildly on the range. You look for even things that you've only known in your imagination, but eventually your mind goes to those days of hearing the stories of in the deeper Kabara jungles to the east, closer towards the islands, where pirates from the collective of islands there have heard of great horned beasts on their tusks and on their faces, and you imagine this rhinoceros immediately, and it charges straight through and barrels through this empty shell of an automaton, obliterating it as it stomps onto the ground and roars into the air, echoing throughout this entire training chamber. How does Evan feel throughout this process of figuring out how to get in touch more with her animal spirits?
In the immediate, as the rhinoceros is summoned and immediately begins to charge, it's very clear how Evan feels, because she's doing, like, it is the most joy, like active joy you've seen from her the entire trip. Is not fear or worry or utter confusion. It's just this like rampaging little joy that causes her to like jump up and like cheer on the rhinoceros as it like barrels through. But as she's been learning and it expanding her mind, she's spent a lot of time trying to not actively avoid this situation, but not actively be a part of it at the same time, and is more coming to the realization that maybe to get the piece that she wants, she has to actually do something about it and actively decide to be a part of this. So she's kind of welcoming this into her now. It's less reluctant.
And to an outside observer, the focus has taken over trepidation and fear and the relief as well in Evan's face of being able to unleash these ideas and this innate calling to nature that she has felt her whole life, in a moment of joy and a celebration of her own abilities. We then move to Sister Mira.
So Mira has spent a good deal of time recently, almost in meditation, sort of reflecting on what happens. And now that I'm finding much doing is comfortable with the idea of going into LA. But previously she hasn't done before, because she's been very much like taking on a support role or one towards a back, making cover for the other charge. So this time, sort of looks around to make sure no one gets too close, as she casts Spirit Guardians at 4th level, and sort of pulled from the sky and from the light around her, manifest several spirits, either from a pale flame or a lightning crackling, into these sort of figures that dance and ring around her. It's sort of hard to pick up the faces on these creatures, if there are any at all, but if one were to stare too long, they almost take on the form of someone familiar to others, almost like an echo of a fragment of a memory, whether it be someone they've seen walking through town, a well-trusted guard, Sheriff Frost on occasion, and then she wades closer towards the training dummy. And if they are, and I believe, within 15 foot of one another, she can hit all of them.
So describe how these figures that you've created, how are you controlling them to attack? What does it look like when they finally strike?
It looks almost as if she is in a trance. Her eyes are sort of pale and glazed over, and she's sort of like muttering a wordless incantation under her breath, and with a quick direction of her hands, the first one darts forth, and then the second one. And because they're sort of forming a ring around her, they're sort of always moving. It just so happens that they're hitting whatever is in proximity.
Excellent. And the weave of this dance, it almost is in synchronous, as if it's like a ballet being performed in a violent fashion, where the sacredness of the spiritual energy is being transmuted into a form of physicality that feels justified just upon witnessing it. Even though that these are essentially practice dummies, there is a feeling of focus from hesitation that had come before, with wanting to only be able to use this kind of immense power for what you had been indoctrinated to believe, and had been raised to understand. Now you are understanding that this is not meant to be violent, but more, this is justice being delivered. This is a means of protecting innocence through forms that those who cannot defend themselves should be able to have. And you are the channeling spirit for which that energy is able to be expelled and on to these targets. We then go to the Witch of Wormwatch, Ivara.
So, Ivara is kind of going over everything that they're going to be facing here. She's looking at the training dummies, and she's just imagining, what's her, Lady Vitae. Is that her name?
Eleanor, yeah.
Yeah. And upon kind of feeling like a new surge of power, she's going to raise her hands, and she's going to start chanting and muttering to herself, and this green light is going to start emanating on all of her training dummies as she casts Sickening Radiance on 4th level, leaving a 30-foot radius sphere centered to the point. She's within range, and pretty much they will have to make a Constitution saving throw, and either that or take 4d10 of radiant damage, and suffers 1 level of exhaustion and emits a dim greenish light in the 5-foot radius.
And knowing that you are essentially just making sure that you have become so innately focused on being able to cast this as second nature, what used to be violent energy that would erupt from you whenever a spell was cast from yourself, either channeled through your spell book or by any sort of internalized means, this is controlled. This is more of, instead of a burst of fire, this is more of a controlled flame. This becomes what you see when, instead of a spark that ignites a powder keg, this is the slow burn controlled from Kindle that eventually becomes an emulsify, burns a lot of logs to eventually feel a true radiant heat of power behind it. But afterwards, instead of just quickly being doused out as if a bucket of water was dumped over it, you're able to mind yourself and have the awareness to be able to control it as if you are just turning the knob down on the power. And the flame and the energy slowly dims down until it's back just to under your control again. All emanating then from the final glow of the page from the book that you've pulled this spell from. The spell book at this point doesn't even need to be in your hands. It is connected to you at this point. And it is, you can see that it floats to you when you need to call it. And like a weapon of your own, you have been fashioned a holster to put it right back at your side. Now you can quick draw with the best of them. Although some say now the pen is mightier than the sword or the wand. Speaking of a wand, we go to the resident wand slinger. Holiday Luckfoot. You've got 2 targets per request. One to your left and one to your right, as you wanted a flanking challenge. At this level of power and skill set that you have now ascertained, have you decided if you are going to be still single-wielding, or if perhaps you've doubled up your efforts?
After the invasion, Holiday had taken to dual wielding now. He now has holstered at his sides after he whips back his trenchcoat's tails Mr. Click's wand as well as his own. And seeing these 2 would-be assailants, he quickly draws with a little flourish before pointing one to his right. The tip of his wand is encased in frost as he casts Ice Knife at that individual. It's going to be a roll to hit. Let's see.
We're just going to assume that these are automatically hits at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, as these are just meant to be targets.
Right, gotcha. So the Ice Knife impacts into the target, taking 1d10 piercing damage.
You just really want to roll, don't you?
I do. I really do. Because not only does he take that 1d10 piercing damage, the Ice Knife that impacted into the chest explodes and does 2d6 cold damage to anyone in a 5-foot radius within that target. As a bonus
luckily
action.
You've been separated enough so
Right.
you won't be hurting each other.
Right. But as a bonus action, with the Wand Slinger feat, I can also cast a cantrip Firebolt at the guy across the way with my wand from Mr. Clicks. And he just raises that one up, fires. Impacting
With a
that one.
flourish of your jacket out, pulling both wands out to the side, firing with Ice Bolt, firing with a Firebolt, you just see 2 different but powerful elements shoot out from extensions of your own hand, obliterating the one to your right, nearly melting the one to your left, with a catapult of shrapnel from the Ice Bolts, from the Ice Knife spell that you have channeled through this wand. You hear the voice of an old friend telling you words of wisdom way back when your old partnership began with certain ne'er-do-wells. And it was simply just, don't miss. And if you do, make sure you don't miss twice.
As he finishes, he flourishes, holsters them real quick, and looks over to Silas. Try not to disappoint my friend.
And with that, we go with Silas and see what is amiss with him at the moment. Silas, you have had a customized weapon this entire time since we've met you. It has become an extension of yourself. At this time, has there been any particular changes to it that you have made, or have you simply just become better with it in your eyes?
There is a bit of trying to get better with it. It's excuse me, it's kind of him tapping in a little bit more into his own arcane potential. It's not that he's done working on it, but he also hasn't really had time with everything that's been going on. So it's still modified to the extent that it is this this wand with a flintlock-like pistol grip on it, made of Fernian ash, emblazoned with Kyber gemstones, and a another ruby placed on that every now and then will flare up as he goes to hit something. And it's just been, like you said, the extension of his own right arm.
You focus so quickly on the target that you kind of give yourself the moment as if you are about to draw. Granted, there will be nothing that can oppose you in this, simply a target, but in your mind, they're ready to fire as well. And with one quick motion, what do you fire at this target?
I will ask in turn, how grueling has this training regimen been? Like, how is morale?
You have basically had enough sleep to reset yourself as you would any other day, but from the moment you've all woken up the other day, it has been nonstop, with only a time to rest, to eat and drink and make sure that you have your wits about you.
He's going
However,
to...
in Silas's case, as we know you are one to do a workaholic lifestyle, you definitely would have gone over the limit despite all warning.
So, probably the training regimen getting to him, being a little bit frustrated with the whole thing. There is one enemy in front of him, and just knowing that, like, okay, it's just, we're setting up again. All right, it's not done until you take this down. He just kind of has a moment where he takes a few deep breaths, listens to what Holiday says, just kind of like looks at him, and then just in one motion shakes his head, draws, and using a 4th level spell slot, casts Shatter.
With that frustration, you see like a sonic boom emanate from your own hand and through the wand, echoing throughout the entire place. You watch as the literal namesake of this spell takes into effect on these training dummies, as one by one, those that were lined up to go next and be placed in front of you by Clinton and by Sheriff Brass are shooken down to parts. And there is a quiet stillness at that point as Brass just looks at you and goes, I may have known a few of those guys. No, I'm just kidding. Good shot, though. Goddamn.
And like just during this whole thing with the wand just kind of like pointed out, he kind of looks it over, adjusts the crystal, holsters it. What's next?
Clinton Hiltwick, a little less feeble-minded and a little more able-bodied, it seems, steps up and says, let's eat. You all want some food? That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? And he heads over with his walking cane over to the kitchen area that has essentially been made. And you can smell a amazing smelling stew being boiled, and the wafting aroma of all the ingredients essentially is pulling you in as a table has been set. And again, as bare bones as it could possibly be, but a comfort that is effective after all the grueling work that you have done in the past 48 hours alone. Not just upping your own skill set and becoming attuned to yourself, but also just things that you have researched and things that you have looked into, which you will be able to ask around this time as you discuss them over food, which is then served between the all 7 of you, shared amongst each other. Very family style. In fact, this is probably the most traditional home-cooked meal you've had in quite some time. Brass sits down and just looks at his bowl and realizes, I don't actually eat. So, if anyone wants seconds, more than welcome.
That is a good point. Mr. Brass, would you like my servant to fetch you some kind of refreshment of sorts?
Well, I'm curious. What is it do you think that I actually consume?
That's a good. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, it's all right. I ain't got no mind. I ain't got no mind to tell you because ain't nothing to consume around here for this. Well, they made us the way they did. But it is fun to pretend. And he just pours a glass of water. This ain't hurt nobody. And then starts drinking water.
All right. Well, just thought I'd ask just in case. Well, bottoms up. You all enjoy yourselves. He just starts rolling a cigarette, lights it up, tells his servant to prepare the traditional vegetarian meal for him, and enjoys a little glass of whiskey as he sits back in his chair.
So the luxuries of home still apply to you, Mr. Luckfoot. Is that true?
Everywhere I go, I travel in comfort.
I've been meaning to ask you, though. What are you still holding on to?
Luck. I'm holding on to luck, my friend.
How fair do you think that's going to work for everybody else?
I don't know. So maybe some of y'all should come rub my feet, and maybe some of that luck will rub off on you.
Yeah, I'll decline on that matter. Thank you very much.
Just thought I'd try.
He basically just kind of like sits down and just looks at his weaponry and is just kind of admiring, just cleaning up, taking apart pieces, putting them back together. Standard military fidgeting habits that he can't seem to break. As Clinton just kind of looks at the table. Well, it seems as though we've gotten a lot done, to say the least. And you're probably wondering why we've been doing it for this long as we have. But, well, I mean, I think y'all have been proving yourselves to be quite formidable. Maybe I'm just making sure that y'all got a better chance of surviving.
We're gonna have to go fight that woman, aren't we?
I reckon we do.
I will say, if there's one thing I know about this group here, is that most of us know how to survive. We're just getting better at it. Hopefully, it's enough to burn that bitch to the fucking ground.
I wholeheartedly agree, Miss Avara. Sister Mira, I don't usually ask you this, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but before we indulge ourselves in this meal, would you mind guiding us along in maybe a prayer?
No, Michael triggering my religious trauma.
Oh no!
And how readable is it that Mira doesn't want to do it?
Why do you think I asked? Just getting everyone out of their comfort zone in the character growth segment of this episode.
Mira actually hesitates because it strikes you that she doesn't know who this prayer would be directed to. It would have been the Silver Flame, but considering how easy our particular sects have been to corruption, she falters.
The Lord hath spoken and have taken away our individual.
So yeah, she falters for a moment, and then she says, "Before we indulge in this meal, I think it would be right to think back on those who helped us get to where we are now, and hope that they and their families can also be safe. That them and their families can also have a bit of comfort, as we heard up to now." And you get the impression that she is thinking about the former townspeople that had been close to them, Ibarra's girls, Evan's flock even, and those she worked with. She thinks about the individuals in the desert who showed us to their temple of their many gods before we engaged in the Lord of Blades. And she knows she's thinking about since he can't. Technically, is Victor's character here with us? Or is
He has decided to realistically, Victor is not available tonight, but Ichabod has spent his time in a more kind of isolated state to really kind of understand their dampiric abilities, and at their own request has asked to take to have their isolated time be respected.
And you also get the impression that she's giving things to Ichabod, who, despite being a stranger, did go out of their way to help them in a time where most would be otherwise untrusting, given the circumstances. And I think that's for what we should pray to. The people who truly help us along the way, not by some divine intervention or magical means.
And with that, a blessing upon this meal allows you all to finish this leveling up, as it were. And the meal is filling. It is satisfying. It's really good, too. Clinton is no joke when it comes to a good stew. And the meal allows everyone to have some time to just sit and not think about everything for a second and just kind of exist in a moment. As short as it and finite as that moment may be, it is enough to kind of just allow a moment of reset before any sort of discussion of what comes next can come next. And the table now being emptied by Holiday's invisible servant, as it were, and being helped along by Clinton and Sheriff Brass.
I would say Bartholomew is there as well to
And
help out.
Bartholomew trying not to get in the way. They are still a bit of an imp. But all in all, this table now just resides with the five of you together. And for once, unoccupied with a task to do for the day. No mission to think of next, no immediate danger, no threat that is imposing or knocking down the door, no sort of threat that is impending and on its way, this time you actually have the upper hand in deciding when you want to go through with what you know you need to do. For once, control is on your side.
I would say Yvara is just constantly at this point. She is very much kind of keeping to herself, very much studying her book at the table. And she has like a very solemn, just extremely serious expression on her face. Normally she's very relaxed, but she seems to be in like just constant thought.
You watch as you can see dust from the light that comes in the Everlight lanterns that are meant to simulate sunlight in this underground area, at least for what is meant to be the time of day. Kind of allowing the dust to float in between those beams through the window and just lighting up portions of the table. There is a warmth to it that feels familiar, not unlike your own place of business back in town when the hours were quiet, when no traders or caravans or folks of business were coming in to enjoy themselves. Rather, just these were the times where Yvara was just you and your book, trying to figure out some things about yourself, or maybe avoiding things that you already knew, or maybe just trying to not think about anything at all. You look around, you see 4 individuals who have impacted your life far greater than you ever expected. And the last time you had kept someone this close to you at all, it didn't end well. But that moment of dwelling on the past, for a brief moment, seems not as important as the present moment right now of the company you are with. Evan, as you sit, what does this meal and this moment, how does it make you feel in this time?
I mean, I think the last time Evan would have had like a proper meal like this would have been when she was at Terry's farm.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, I don't know if when they came into town they passed close enough to see it, but her mind does run on Terry and his family if they manage to get out. She doesn't think much of many people in the town, but he was fairly good to her. So her mind runs on this. Also, while she's at the table, she's summoning about 8 ferrets. So they're just kind of in her lap, running up and down, just because she can now confidently.
You have turned a spell into a fidget toy.
Essentially, yes. It's very important, okay? Desperately needing some kind of animal contact
Absolutely.
over these last few days. Having a
Absolutely.
bundle of ferrets is very good.
Fluffy noodles.
These furry little noodles, just and honestly, with everyone having seen you conjure different animals over a period of time, like just this one little moment, no one's really paying any mind to the randomness of it, as it were, because it's not. This has been what you've been going through. This is the upscale of life, one that you never saw coming in your own way. You thought Wormwatch was a chance for you to be able to live a life where you could be in tune with nature in a way that you didn't feel that you could afford anywhere else you've lived. And in such a nicer setting where so many people come in and out to restart their lives or start a new chapter of it, you found yourself then right in the middle of starting the heaviest chapter of your own life. Silas, you've not only been training, but I believe you said you have also been doing research in between. What was it that you had been looking into during these past 48 hours?
Allow me to read all of the things that I sent you.
What would you say is the most important for you amongst the lists?
Most important?
Yeah, the thing that you feel like, I need to know this.
Probably the thing that I sent to you with a spoiler warning.
No, we can go into it. You
Just because, like,
been
with everything
watching.
Yeah.
You've been watching Clinton Hellwick, and you caught a glimpse of something when he showed that you and him share a dragon mark tattoo that was aberrant, meaning it was forced upon you, burnt into your bodies to become part of an arcane energy you did not understand, of which it had ties to House Vol, or so it seemed. The other thing that you noticed that you have yet to tell the rest of the party is you saw similar colored scales on the arm of Clinton Hellwick that you share on your own body as well, because of your specific lineage. In that time, what is the thought that has been going on? Because I assume you have not spoken to him about it at all yet.
No.
Or at least not in the way you'd want to comfortably be able to have a real sit down, hey, we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So he basically, like, hasn't really had the conversation with him. It's on his mind. It's definitely something that he wants to talk about. Just with everything that's been happening, he hasn't been able to get to a point where him and Hiltwick have a moment, and then it's also the struggle to get past what Hiltwick has done just to even have the conversation.
In that time, with the library's access to you, what do you think in relation to this you would have gone into looking into?
Buzzwords, naturally, House Vol, Mark of Death, anything to do with dragons or people with draconic lineage, outside of like just knowing from the research that we had back at the Desert Shrine. Silas already knows about the one named Arandus Vol.
You have essentially... you believe that you have gotten is pretty much as much information about Arandis Vol that you could have possibly gotten that time has allowed to be published.
Yeah.
And whatever else could have been found out has more than likely been lost from either records being completely destroyed, struck, or by some magical means, maybe even obliterated from even existing anymore. In terms of draconic history, it is not uncommon that dragons still interact with mortals in Eberron. Granted, they have exiled themselves to their own continent in Arganessen, where they have their own society, and where they have, and these are, I'm talking about full adult dragons, wormlings, anything that is not of dragonborn nature. Dragonborns themselves have kind of been a schism culture, much like when half elves or any sort of half lineage has broken off from their core background. But the mainland dragons, as it were, of Arganessen, they still deal with the different politics that come from the 5 nations that run the continent of Corvair. They deal with the trade and the different armies and the different resources that all come into sovereign nations trying to exist. There are emissary dragons, those that have been known to, and this is from a bygone era before a total exile from society, the dragons taking on humanoid appearances to act as ambassadors were not uncommon many millennia ago. That kind of life has long since passed, as there was a societal change for dragons to be more now of their own true nature and true kind, no longer to hide amongst the mortals. Half-dragons, however, are a rare kind and a rare find. If anything, they are a more hidden lineage. If nothing else, then for being it on purpose, because many still in this world blame dragons for what happened as part of the Day of Mourning. They don't know why. There is always this, it might have been dragons kind of thing, where they're the most destructive force that lives on our world. If anything could kill that many people that quickly, if that's what's still led to be believed, it may have been them. So for half-dragons to exist, that means that they have mixed with other lineages. There may be elves and dwarves and orcs and all sorts of species that have become entangled with the culture of dragons that you wouldn't know if anyone could be of draconic lineage at this point. In fact, it's possible that 1 out of every 6 people in the world has some sort of draconic lineage. Coincidentally. Having known and learned that now more, that you are, fair to say, not as unique as you thought you may have been, where does that leave Silas's mind?
It still doesn't quite add up the same that 2 people who were both getting away from House Cannith, both Brass Dragon descendants, both forcibly marked with this Aberron Dragon mark. There's too much, at least between them, that wherever there may be other people with draconic lineage, that's their thing, but there is something going on, and apparently Silas Hayden and Clinton Hiltwick are a part of it.
The one thing you do know about Brass Dragon's lineage, they are the most gregarious of true dragons. They crave conversation, sunlight, hot and dry climates. They are defined, at least in the true full adult form, by the broad protective plate that expands from their forehead and the spikes protruding from their chin. The scales, as it ages, begin to shine and eventually taking on a warmed, furnished luster. The brass dragon in lore and legend, from those who have dared say they've actually spoken to one, engages in conversation throughout its life, accumulating useful knowledge, which it will gladly share for gifts of treasure. This has come into modern colloquialisms as college, or they're talking like someone who wants a lot of brass, or they're a real brass individual, and it becomes like almost a knock on someone who just loves to talk. Sometimes people use it as an insult of like they're sounding really brassy right now, when when what they're really saying is they just love to hear themselves talk, don't they? Many educators have been it is a joke to accuse a high educator who loves to give lectures as a brass dragon in disguise. But communication in exchange, or knowledge in exchange for treasure, is what you've kind of lived your life to be like. You research, you find results, and in return, you get paid for that. That has been the life of the artificer that you had become. And as you began to discover more innate abilities, the one thing that you knew most about you is that you have a hard time filtering your own kind of bold, talkative self. But maybe that's why you got along so well with Clinton. Maybe there was this understanding of the exchange of knowledge between the two of you, where the reward and the treasure itself became the kinship. The understanding that you two were very much of a similar nature in the pursuit of knowledge, in the pursuit of the embetterment of society through your own arcane means. Perhaps there was something that bonded that and drew you in to be able to still see them as an ally for the benefit of the doubt. But you still think there's something missing. What is it that just is tapping at your brain? That feeling of when you know the words are there, but you can't see them, so you can't say them out loud. But you have a gut instinct that you know exactly what the answer is. It just escapes you at the moment. And it escapes you again. Because it's right there. At least it feels like it is. Holiday Luckfoot. The Harengon that has survived disaster after disaster after disaster misfortune after misfortune, but still never running away, just being in the right place at the right time. After all this time, how is that still possible? How is something that surely would be the downfall of anybody else that they would know? How are you still standing? Well, you already know the answer. They're not you. But is that something you've taken for granted? Every now and then, a mortal does need to recognize when their luck runs short. And forever alive you've been, and on this material plane, you've had a hot streak going for quite some time. Maybe it's just the Fey nature that you are at least minimally aware of, as there's not a lot of walking, talking bipedal rabbits in the, that you know of. But they never really pay no mind to someone like you. As if someone is playing a trick on everybody. Maybe that is the trick. Maybe the trick is seeing just how far this luck goes. And as the saying is, how far down does the rabbit hole reach? And Sister Mira, the divine nature of your Kalishtar background. When was the last time you actually thought about that individual that feels so long ago that spoke to you and told you to start following down a true path?
Most recently, just when she considered how many people they had met along the way before blessing the food. Before that, they had slipped her mind, just because there was so much more at the forefront of what was going on, that it seemed like what everyone else was going through was more important than what she personally needed to consider.
The path of light. You know of it, you've heard of it, but it's never rung more in your mind than since that first encounter with someone who claimed to have been from the plane of Dalquor. The Dreaming Dark. The place where an age of idea, darkness, and light combined. But the path of light was brought forth by a sage who tried to study the Dreaming Dark, and when they went too deep, they dramatically reshaped their entire existence, and to the point where they were almost unrecognized. And since then, it has been a hesitant line of belief for many Kalishtar who come of age to understand the path of light. But for those that do accept it, they understand that it's not only the light that they have to embrace, it's not only the dark that they have to embrace, but they have to be able to understand how to live in both. You've been raised through this Church of the Silver Flame to live in the light, to share the light with others. The light of the Silver Flame be with all of you. And that has been the doctrine and the dogmatic behavior that you have just lived through. But only in these past several months has the darkness crept up slower and started getting a handle on you. That you've been able to embrace at least the shadow that has now been cast upon your own actions. Whether you let the light shine in front of you so that that shadow follows you, or you turn around to let the light be pushing behind you so that you may face that shadow, that is still a path that you have yet to decide upon. But is one that you know is going to be very much a deciding factor in how you, Mira, Kalishtar of the city of Sharn, will live your life. And with all of these things brewing in all of your collective minds, it's there where you're invited back to the courtyard area where Clinton Hildwick has decided it's time to talk and figure out some plans. And that's where we'll take our break. And when we come back, we find out exactly what is the next step for the Wormwatch group. We'll be right back. We'll see you in about 5 minutes, everybody. Stick around. And welcome back. Thank you, everybody who has been watching with us, by the way. We truly appreciate it. Matt, what is coming up in the lineup? And Tarzan, you can jump in on this as well. What is coming up on the lineup for all things to be diced?
Boy, howdy. I think that means that Tarzan's up first.
Well, how
Yeah.
do there is correct. This Tuesday at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we have The Adventures of Star Wars, the role-playing game Edge of the Empire, the group known as Core Atlas, a heist running through, adventuring into the realm of Star Wars, and taking on missions at the behest of their benefactors, representatives of the ISB, also known as the Imperial Security Bureau. What that will entail, who knows? But they have already been briefed. We're taking down the Emperor.
I watched the most recent episode, and it was so complimentary to me to hear Matt go, play the intro again, and then Tarzan just goes, click.
Absolutely.
But not only
That's
that,
fine.
like actually having it happen when usually, like Matt says, like you said, when when I ask for it again, it usually never happens.
But I gotta give that credit to KJ because KJ was running behind the scenes for us because I don't have.
Oh, great
set
job,
up
KJ.
for it yet.
KJ's got my back.
Fantastic.
KJ is the best of us.
And
after that, since we're
that
doing-
means that there is another show coming up, I believe, called. Now, let me know if I get this right.
Let's see.
No, I'm kidding. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
There's only so many times I can do the bit, and to be honest, it's more fun to do it when KJ is here because just to watch their reaction.
Just wait for their reaction videos when they're watching, because midway through, when we start talking about our Wednesday night game, the dimensional door of Diego's doctorate, and then they just explode and have to pause and yell at us. Because that's the game that we play, Dimensional's Door of Diego's Doctorate, on Wednesday nights.
I thought it was the proportional pocket of Peter Peckerall. I don't know.
Well done. Well played.
Oh, boy. That almost sounds like the beginning of a Captain Underpants book. But either way. Wednesday evening, around 10 p.m. Eastern, and then all the things for that. We will be once again delving into this story of ours that we have. The players currently appear to have, after much toil, finally gotten a not just veiled mysterious response, but an actual physical appearance of none other than the Raven Queen herself. And all that I will let all of you know is that by Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, the Raven Queen is lawful neutral, not lawful good. So that this is your fault.
The law is going to be brought in. And of course, then on Thursdays, there is the continuing Tales of Varden, of which I do apologize, Silas. I'm not Silas. Sorry, my character has silently gone into a bit of a self-discovery journey due to just the fact that I'm very busy with another schedule right now. So, but the rest of those wonderful characters, including, I believe, one that Dia's character has been kidnapped. And taken off to a pocket dimension.
Yeah, and whatever else Dia is tormenting me with.
He's in a.
But if you like ghost pirates, if you like orcs raised by halflings, if you like
Ghost pirates,
which, by the way,
flower crowns.
Yeah, the videos that you have now been posting about that character on your TikTok have been fantastic. What a wonderful makeup and costuming job.
I still have green paint. Like, I'm still finding it. It's ridiculous.
Green place the green should never be.
I could only imagine.
The life of cosplay.
As a tiny little thing about Grendel that I have forgotten to share, my partner started a new Baldur's Gate 3 run, and her guardian is Grendel as much as she can.
Oh my god! I need to see a picture!
I will do that as Mike gets the ball rolling on tonight's set.
Oh my god!
And with that, we continue. We find now ourselves in this courtyard, this makeshift semblance of a rock garden, which is to. Can you hear me?
You're just kind of weirdly echoey.
You're weirdly. Wait.
Your mom's weirdly echoey.
Hey, let's be nice.
I don't know what it is, but StreamYard does this to me as well. When you click play on the music again, all of a sudden you just get kind of weird for a second. But only you, like the person controlling it.
So you're brought into what is essentially kind of like what seems to have been, Druid Circle, but by way of IKEA. Is like the best way I can describe it. It is more of the aesthetic than it is of the ritualistic nature, which I mean, Evan, if it wasn't driving you as crazy as it was, I would make you like do a save, but I'm not going to make you do that. And Clinton immediately looks at you and just kind of apologizes. He just looks and goes, I did not make this. This was not my doing.
It's fine. In the distressed way that says it's not really fine.
Right. It's fine, like through gritted teeth. But I figured as much that this is a way where we can talk peacefully, quietly, at least to ourselves, and figure out exactly what it is that we all want to do. Now, I have given you the extent of my own knowledge of what and the resources that I have here at the Institute, or at least what has been able to be salvaged since all the impending madness. But I will also answer any questions. And I'm sure Sheriff Brass here will answer anything that he may know, and I trust that we all may actually be able to ask and answer anything that we need to know of each other before we go into such a venture as this. So now is the time for us to speak our minds. I will ask first. Mr. Luckfoot, I know that you and I have been able to come to accords peacefully, and I have not overstepped my boundaries in terms of any sort of personal nature in regards to your own background. I've only known you as the reputation that you have presented yourself in the time you have been in this town, which has been just about as long as I've been. But due to the magical nature of everything that has been involved, and I'm sure that the rest of your party knows and understands, but you are obviously not of this plane. So how is it that you have been able to not have these simple folk of this town kill a walking, talking rabbit?
Part of me would like to attribute that to my award-winning personality, but that's not entirely the case. You see, you are correct in the assumption that I'm not from this plane. I did originate from the Feywild, but some series of events took place that have seen me exiled from my home, to which I have now found myself here, looking to make a new name for myself under a new alias, as it were.
Evan, you hear Holiday essentially through verbal means drop a kind of psychological glamour, and this magic that was essentially allowing no one to second guess Holiday for what they actually are. The veneer of that just drops, and you, as a druid, are now realizing you have been in contact with and have resided in the same town as someone from Thalanis, the sacred Feywild realm that druids commune with. This whole time, they've just been here.
Yeah. But why?
Wait, yeah, your system there.
Don't act like this is fine. This is not fine. I mean, I'm very sorry that you were exiled from your plane and all that. But why? But why here? Why are you just why Why?
You see, this land presents ample opportunity for one to make a name for themselves, and have sought to make that name for myself, by which I have done fairly well. As you can see, I'm doing far better than I was doing back in the other plane. I still have a few tricks that reside from my home, but I find myself in better standing here than I ever did back home. So that's why I continue to remain here.
But I mean, if
Sil-
you're having this, no, sorry, if you're having this power to like conceal yourself, why are you in charge of the lumber yard?
That's a long story, my friend.
I mean, all right.
Silas picking up on a few things of what was just said. He's just gonna like raise an eyebrow and look at Holiday and just go, "You say you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you quite literally did, because you mentioned an alias, Holiday, which is another word for vacation. So are you telling me that you are treating an exile, which does have the sort of feel of a punishment, as a vacation?"
What can I say? I like to look on the brighter side of things.
That does bring to the question, though, what got you exiled? Because that's not something you do willingly, like a spur of the moment weekend vacation.
Right.
You get exiled.
Tell me, friend, how familiar are you with the customs of Philonis?
I don't even know how to spell that, I don't think. And I know how to spell most words.
Well, let's just say I made one too many one-sided deals. And the rulers of Philonis sought that I should no longer reside there. It's a whole messy situation. Pay it no mind. I just decided to think about it.
You made some deals with people where you got the lion's share, if you will, of the profits on the deal, and they were screwed, and the powers that be above you sought to exile you as a punishment for these shady business practices.
You see, profits,
Well,
it doesn't really apply into the sense of which...
Because the point that I'm trying to make is, can we have them here? Have you heard of the business practices that go along here? If you're telling me that the government's going to step in for these one-sided deals and be like, hey, you're fucking up, buddy. We kind of need that here, because it seems like they're just kind of doing that shit. So, like, I get why it's an exile now. You'd want to be there. That's right, everybody. The real enemy is capitalism.
I knew it. I knew it.
And the Feywild is apparently the promised land. All it will take is just a moment of your time.
Quite literally. Yeah.
If only it were that simple.
Right? It's, like I said, it's a long, complicated situation to explain. But yes, I could come from Philonis, and I mean, bad business practices is it's only bad if you get discovered for doing bad business practices, and so far, as of yet, I have not been discovered, so... And maybe leave that up to my Fey charm. That might help. But we'll see. For now, I think we should probably stay on task with the current and immediate threat, of which the Eleanor Vitae currently presents herself as.
Just need to put it out there that this entire time Mira did not know that Holiday had some sort of psychological alignment on the townspeople. She had just accepted it as one of Wormwatch's quirks, and thought everyone else acknowledged it was just a fade living in their presence.
Yeah, it really kind of all dawns on the rest of you. Like,
Yeah.
Evan picked it up first because of her
Oh my
druidic
God, why
nature,
did
but
we question
the
this?
rest of you are just like, oh shit, he's a freaking fey creature that's just been here the whole time.
You know, now that you mention it, I've never seen another 5 foot something rabbit that can speak common.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is kind of weird, huh?
Wormwatch is so Wormwatchy that Mira, coming from a city, just thought this was normal.
So
has no
worm watchy.
Yes. Don't forget,
So Wormwatchy.
they have we have all sorts. So this was like, oh, okay.
Upon this realization, Ivara, she just kind of glances up at Holiday and she goes, honestly, it just doesn't surprise me that you just still are doing the same exact thing you were doing back in the Feywild. If
Yeah, we
anything,
didn't
you're
have-
just a businessman. Fey creature or human, elf, whatever. You're just a businessman.
This is why we see
At
eye
that,
to eye,
when you
Ivara.
say that, Brass just kind of turns and looks at you abruptly and just goes, I am dying to know what actually would surprise you at this point in your life.
Ivara just kind of
and this is coming from someone who has died.
Ivara just kind of turns her head to Brass and she goes, after the half the lives that I've lived, I really haven't found anything that can really surprise me up to this point. I've learned that people are extremely unpredictable, and I'll just leave it at that.
I ain't gonna lie, darling, that kind of makes me sad.
Well,
Were I
people
to
say
be
that,
able to shed tears from these eyes, one would be for you.
oh, darling, there's no need to cry for me. I already did that.
I ain't
for
saying
you.
I'm gonna. I'm just saying if I could, it probably would be. But, I ain't gonna waste the time on it.
Well, there ain't no time needing to be wasted on it.
Mhm.
All right, I guess I'll ask me a question then. Oh, man. Where to begin? I mean, I've been through so much with all y'all, I feel like I never had to second guess. And quite frankly, I still don't think I got to, but, we're all trying to get things out here in the open, so... Hell, if y'all got a question for me, I'm an open book at this point, but I think... What I think I really need to know is... Sister Mira, if I am drawn too close to the chest for this one, I will pull back, but... How come you had so much faith in Brother Mason?
Funny question. I suppose. Well, if you were to have your congregation be led by someone as strict and conservative as his predecessor, then I think even you would be relieved to have a sort of breath of fresh air that Brother Mason had brought with him, a less restricted take on what our church entailed and what we preached and the practices that we led with. He had hoped to bring change, and I was of those that believed it would be a good fit.
You brought change, all right.
Brought change, but not quite in the way we anticipated. I suppose there was part of me that might have recognized him from before. I'm sure you all saw he knew me. And I now understand why a part of me would be so trusting for an otherwise stranger.
How did
I
he
knew-
know you? That was so strange. How all of a sudden he became so familiar with you.
Yes, I suppose. It struck me not long ago that it feels almost full circle, looking at Wormwatch. As it is now, what wreck it has become. The unfortunate truth. If you don't mind my words, it reminds me of Falling. A district in Shan in which I worked used to be known as God's Gate, before the glass tower fell, and all that was left was ruin and rot. I knew him then as one who had been bitten in a pitiful state. It shames me to say I don't recall the name he gave, but I do recall how I helped him then. This wretched creature that only needed a hand of kindness extended to him. It is why I said, in our final moments, that I did save him then, but did not expect death to be a second kindness shown. I have no excuses.
Damn shame. Damn shame.
Yes, quite. Makes me wonder whether our situation might have been different had I just carried on through the market that day.
Well, we all can think about things that we might have, could have, should have, or would have done. Hell, I know that in my time that I've made choices about people I decided to associate myself with that I reckon look in the long run may not have been the best call. But when you're in the heat of battle, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I've been
And he stops and like stares at his own badge that he takes off for a moment and just grips onto it for a minute and then sits quietly again.
Oh,
One
my-
of
I have some more things for you lot. From her bag, Mira draws forth 4 more very eclectic bottles filled with what you understand to be holy water. As she holds it, it sort of takes on this ephemeral glow before she hands it to each of you. As she was speaking of the Fallen District, her mind sort of went back to the same sense of resourcefulness that she had then. She had since been, while we were resting, while we were eating, sort of taking on empty potions bottles, empty flasks, filling them up with water and casting ceremony on them. To give you lot 4 more holy water grenades to be used in the battle to come.
Smash.
Well, this will definitely be resourceful, Sister Mira. I apologize, but should we still refer to you as a sister of the church?
She thinks for a moment. You don't need to. You can call me Mira. My name is Mira Sharma.
Well,
I don't think I feel comfortable with that title anymore.
it may take some getting used to, but I think we will all abide. Miss Evan, if I may, as Clinton kind of just sits himself up a little, I rightly don't know much about you at all, other than what you are absolutely capable of, and quite frankly, it is remarkable. But I think I may have started to understand at least how you might be connected in all this. You see, druids don't really have much of a well, they've never been really one to stay in these parts. You know, there are groups that have come in and out through traveling, and many just kind of leave after they feel a lack of nature has not really been accessible, and then head towards the jungles of Kabara and find themselves more in a comfortable land, as it were, where a more vibrant source of certain, you know, certain activity, as it were, from nature is able to be found. But being that you have this nature connection, I think that's what Miss Avara's wild magic surge may have pinpointed. And maybe somehow she connected with you and saw you as a viable source of, well, protection. Protection from the elements, from wherever it is that y'all were headed, which turned out to be the desert of all places. A nature that is unfamiliar with the majority of the folk here, unless they be passing through it just to get to where they need to go. Save for maybe that one fella from the Talenta Plains that used to be around the town. I don't rightly know much of desert folk or those who would be comfortable in it. But you, sir, seem to have some sort of ability, as it were, to tune in with nature all around you. Granted, it's just a theory at this point, but I think it holds water.
Evan, who is in the process of, when Mira is giving out the holy water, gently exchanging a ferret, looks up, listening to Clinton, is like, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe. The thing is, I'm not too unfamiliar with, having to rough it in some places, See, my parents, my family, they were refugees of the war, and so we moved a lot around, and I'm used to making things work. And the whole druid thing, it kind of sort of happened to me. And she holds the arm that is missing. Happened to me sort of less of my volition than one would commonly want to happen, but I make things work. And yeah, nature seemed to find me as much as I found it. It protected me, and I guess if I'm as connected as I seem to be, then maybe it's trying to use me or go through me for something. I don't know. Frankly, I'm kind of figuring out that the things you want and the things you might be fated for ain't all the same.
Interesting theory. But I think that means a coincidence, and things happen in the right place at the right time and get thrown out the wayside when chaos magic gets involved. Ain't that right, Miss Avara?
You're telling me, Brass.
And I think that was Clinton talking to you, yeah.
Oh, Clinton? Oh, sorry.
She just got brass on the brain.
Oh, my bad.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
So he just kind of like he kind of takes this all in, and well, I've learned so much about it, the five of you over the last 48 hours, and you especially, Miss Sheriff Brass. And Copper, the Brass at that point just goes, "Man, I don't want to be sheriff no more. To be perfectly honest, it's a bum job." And I wasn't even having an iota of influence in that town as far as I'm concerned, because people like you, Mr. Hiltwick, seem to have been rightly more in charge than I suspected. And Clinton just kind of goes silent at this point, of a reluctancy of admission. I don't know necessarily if that's true. I mean, I was more manipulated into a position of power and influence than I was one to reluctantly kind of take it. But that's my own. He is sweating at this point. No insight check needed. He is drenched in like nervousness of a wave of flop sweat of just the mere attempt to discuss any of this is kind of making him like very uncomfortable.
I send him a ferret.
And he just kind of goes, "Oh, hello. Oh, hi. Do I move? Do I pet it? What do I do?"
It's friendly. It's friendly.
Okay.
It's not gonna bite you or nothing.
Hey there, little fella.
Casting detect thoughts because Mira is curious, and she's going to do that accidentally, anyways. What was?
Yeah.
Clinton's
On the surface level is just he's going. You're seeing now more of the vocalizations of the visions that were shown in that that time in the temple after fighting the Lord of Blades and your worst enemies, as it were, being manifested in that spiritual journey and test, where it was revealed that Lady Vitae was in fact manipulating and blackmailing Clinton into running the town from the position of power that he held. And what you're hearing in these flashes and these memories that are immediately bringing up is blackmail in regards to, quote, his true nature and something that you don't want other people learning about. And it would be very bad for people to find out who you really are, Mr. Hiltwick, wouldn't it? That sort of like just keeps getting repeated and brought up as he kind of just like tries to suppress and quiet his head down.
Mira is just staring very intensely at him and doesn't even realize she's staring so much. She's just like, huh.
We all have
Looking through him.
pasts that we're not too fond of. But, Clint, you did what you could. And some of us don't.
Mr. Luckfoot, I don't rightly know if I did, to be perfectly honest. I feel like I've been paying for that every day since.
Mr. Hiltwick, would people knowing who you really are be so terrible?
He kind of chokes on his water as he hears you say that. Like, what do you mean,
Lance?
Miss Mirashana?
I mean exactly what I said. Are we in?
This is when you pet the ferret.
We're not in. This is we. You're among non-judgmental friends. I don't think there's much more that could surprise us than has been shared already.
Ivar just kind of raises a brow.
If
And
I'm
he looks at you, Silas, as if to go like, I mean, and you totally just dodge it, right? Okay. He's kind of looking at you in that face of like, bro, what do I do? Like, and you're like, you're on your own, right?
Hey man, you dug the hole. Time to either get out of it or lay down in it.
Oh, okay. I think in order for me to talk to you about that specifically, we need to go to a more comfortable space. And he looks around. Perhaps where we practiced this morning. And he gets up with his cane and he just starts to walk a little like hesitantly and then makes his way down the steps to the outside or this outer area where the courtyard, where the larger area, training area was there, where the dummies were set up. While you're following him, though, he just tells you, stay there, just as in a moment of just his hand gesture. As the six of you, rather, along with Copper, just stand aside.
So
And he says,
you sure about this?
It's time, Holiday. I'm tired of hiding. And you watch
Everybody stay back.
as the form of Clinton Hildwick disappears. And growing in immense size appears to you an adult brass dragon.
Smash.
I was literally typing Taylor, calm down. I couldn't get that.
Barely finished the word.
And you hear in a deep rumbling voice, "This is who I am, truly."
Well, aren't you a shiny piece of work?
Holy shit.
Those of you paying attention, Holiday's not fazed by this at all, and he's just sitting in the corner, lighting another cigarette. Here we go.
That's a goddamn I'm so sorry. That's a goddamn
Yvara is going to take a moment. She's going to glance over at Silas and like look at the mark on his arm and just be like, so, can you do that?
You were afraid of a ferret. You're a dragon.
Something about elephants and mice comes up.
And he is, you understand now why this room is as big as it is. This wasn't a area for, any kind of research or anything. This is a lair. This is where he resides. This is the home of a brass dragon at the base of the Endworld Mountains of where Wormwatch resides. I was the first to arrive here because I was, long ago, sent here after being given my punishment from my home. I am from Arganessen, and 8,000 years ago, I was exiled. For I had found someone who was not of our kind. and I vowed myself to them when it was not permitted. A nameless one. One who a nation was named after. Now you know as Valinar. The nation of the elves. My punishment was to be exiled. To find a home at the end of the world. And to be struck from conversing with my own kind. Until then, I was known in my native tongue as Kavath Dilan, the nimble beast amongst the common. But upon exiling, I became the voiceless one, stripped of my draconic language rights, never to speak to another of full kind again. And he stands there, watching over all of your faces, wondering if there is judgment or fear or an iota of understanding. You can tell that he's uncomfortable because he has not taken this form in quite some time, that he is almost too scared to present in his lowered his head at just to be able to attempt to speak with you. But there is a look of shame with every word that comes out. And eventually he just brings himself down, and you can see him lie down and bring his head down in shame.
I think Evan's face reads of sympathy more than anything. Because in this form, despite like having just seen him like as a human, he reads more bestial. So she has an immediate empathy towards biggest thing she's seen. But I think she'll look to the group. I mean, I don't mind so much. Y'all have more of a history with him than I do. But and if y'all have like personal biases that y'all need to make aware, but Mr. Clinton, well, I don't know which name you prefer now in this form.
To say my name properly would take you a millennia of lifetimes.
Ooh,
a burden of
that's
which
a
I will
lot.
not bespoke upon you.
Okay, that's all right. Should I stick with Clinton then?
I have become accustomed to this mortal name.
Okay.
Dragon name Clinton.
I'm not gonna judge you for anything you did in the past. I'm sorry I yelled at you for a moment. you are the first dragon I have ever seen. So I couldn't get over that very quickly, but you still have my sympathy. I'm sorry you were exiled.
And he kind of just closes his eyes to just kind of take that in, as it's the most sympathy he probably has ever heard from another mortal. Ever.
Mira is going to approach him and sort of raise her hands towards his head, or rather his snout, to just, if he'll allow, gently pet him as she conducts a mind link. And from where her hand is touching him, if he allows, we'll sort of get this wave of empathy, and with it comes the understanding that she is feeling pain that is his own, to better understand it and to sympathize with him. And with it, completely wordless, he'll feel this sense of sort of a sense of apology, but it comes in like a wave of soothing energy. And it's not something that words can really convey. It's something between a Kalishtan, between a dragon, two creatures that don't quite fit within the realm of mortality. It's something that they will share. And in his mind, he'll hear, I think it would be quite nice to stretch your wings every once in a while. There's no shame, I've been told, in actions of a past that lead to where you are now.
And a kind of like low rumble, as if it was almost like a purr of acceptance of this feeling and vibe and shared words is given. And he has kind of now even let the guard down more, as the relaxed nature of him actually now being in his comfortable natural form for the first time in truly none of you know, other than Holiday, in regards to a time of seeing this actually happen. And Holiday, your insight on this is that this is, for the brief time that it was revealed to you, it certainly wasn't like this. And it was only in a kind of moment of understanding. But now you are seeing him actually attempt to be comfortable in front of others.
Right. I think there would be a level of familiarity for Holiday. Hearing his story of how he was he too was exiled from his home and lost the native tongue of which he speaks. Holiday, whose native tongue was Sylvan, was lost to him once exiled to this plane of existence. Hasn't spoken in 30 years since he's been on this plane. In being of the Fey nature, his true age is lost to him, but he can count on. He can recall that he's been on this plane for at least 30 years up until this point of his exile, and it's a long time to go without speaking your native tongue, and that's where he connects with Hiltwick in that sense.
What's Silas thinking?
Not as unshocked as Holiday, who straight knew, and definitely not as shocked as Evan, who had no idea or context of this. Silas has just been kind of like looking up, like almost with a look of like, you son of a bitch, like He's just been kind of like looking and pondering the whole time. Just goes, so how much is coincidence? You and me.
If you're expecting me to tell you we are related or something, I'm sorry.
God,
I
I'd
will
hope
be
not. That would just
disappointing
be
you
too
at that
much.
point.
Yeah, no. Let's not do that.
No, you, if anything, are certainly a
Right.
peer.
Okay.
One intelligence I respect and have sometimes envied. Not many, but certainly enough. But we were chosen for our nature. To be conduits. To be tools to be used by that vile creature who poses as some sort of dignitary. Eleanor Vitae saw our connection and sought for me to manipulate it. I led her to believe that I was using you to further her plan. What she did not understand was that I knew more about the technology that I was giving you to look into than she ever would have understood. I needed an ally. And I found one in your kinship and your ability. I knew that if I were to safeguard you with the knowledge that I had discovered about the weapons and the plans that had been were being overseen, I had to test the metal, as it were, of someone of draconic lineage, such as yourself. The Dragonborn of the Dragonwatch Isles from over on the other side of the bay were protected by me for the sake of just being able to make sure their kind were not suffering the same fate as myself. That is why I had chosen this particular spot. As you may have guessed, I may have had a bit of influence in the naming of the town.
No.
Yes, get it out of your system now.
That's
Sarcasm was never flattering on you, Silas.
It's not intended to be. I never use it for an endearing quality. It's always usually just to point out that somebody else is saying some shit that we already knew.
You know, no one likes that kind of attitude either. You know, this is probably why you have a hard time making friends.
I think Silas makes friends just fine.
Thank
I mean,
you,
he's not
Evan.
the most. We've barely spoken, but I still think you make friends just fine.
Ivara kind of just snorts a little bit.
I mean, people must stick around and do
Nevertheless,
something.
This is who I am, and this is what she threatened to reveal.
Silas just nods and he's kind of putting the picture together, and he goes, so how sick are you? You are clearly a literal force of nature. You are one of the most powerful beings that has ever graced Eberron. And whatever power she may have, that tail of the tape doesn't really add up for that prize fight. So how bad is it? And what do we do about it?
It took everything I had within me to survive activating the bulwark to protect the town. And it took everything I had beforehand to not bring about this form outward and ruin a town's safety. A mining facility that is with a rich resource of power and mineral ore being overseen by a adult and at this point ancient brass dragon is not a good look to the unfamiliar when you may not be able to explain nuance to them when all they see and hear is a dragon is overlooking a hoard of treasure.
Well, when you break it down that way.
I must say, though, I do feel much more relaxed and in better shape in this form. But I think it is time, as you said, Mirashana, to see about spreading my wings for once in this town. And if you will all abide and allow me to join you in this journey, I do not know at how strong I may still be, but I do know that I can at least protect you to some degree.
You sure that's the smartest course of action?
If I could survive the entire town being trapped in a moment in time, as a mortal, I think when we eventually figure out how to reverse it and stop her once and for all, I'll be able to hold my own enough.
That's an excellent point you make. How do we reverse the bulwark's effect on the town?
And how do we stop Eleanor Vitae?
It is the reason why I've been having you train as hard as you have. You must be of sound mind and body and magical ability to survive a reversal of this nature. Were I to just do the ritual and reverse the process of this entire smoke dome this town has become enveloped in, your flesh would be ripped apart from your very bodies and your souls would become ethereal nothingness.
So bad.
Yes.
But what about
He looks visibly hurt by your lack of actual elaboration, Silas. Just from the very nature of your previous conversations, just oh, that hurt more than a sword.
Is there anyone else who might be affected by the reversal that ain't us?
In theory, should we do it correctly, it will involve your ability to tune into nature, Ivara's ability to tune into the chaotic magic, Mirashana's ability to attune to the divine, Mr. Luckfoot's ability to attune to the Thelanis magic by his very fey nature, and Silas, your ability to mechanically engineer the magic through the device. Each of you will have your part to play.
What
I
exactly do
think
you mean
now
by that?
you are. It's going to be the most toiling process we have ever done, but
Try
I
me.
think that will be able to pull it off. And this is going to be now the only dice roll that will have really truly asked of all of you collectively in this episode. I would love for everyone to make an insight check at his words.
Do I get advantage
On him.
No?
Yes, you may. You can all have advantage over this due to the fact of everything that's been revealed at this point.
I somehow dropped a dice and it went into my hoodie pocket. That was crazy.
So that is a dirty 20.
Also a dirty 20.
18.
Advantage.
And as you look upon his words,
21.
That is a natural 20 for 25.
I will say
Of
that
course the
with all of
silence.
these high rolls, you have absolutely gone beyond the curve.
Blew it away.
Yeah. You look at him. You see that his words are heavy at heart. But you know that he is saying them with trust and with honesty. But there is a feeling of doubt in yourselves for a twinge of a moment, because you do realize just how serious he is. And with that lingering feeling of knowing that the next thing that is going to happen is going to be the most important decision you will ever make in your entire life or any lifetime beyond. That's where we're going to end our session.
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. You always do this. You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Season 2 of Frontiers of Eberron, Chapter 4, Home on the Strange. Big dragon reveal, everybody.
Big dragon, everyone.
Big dragon.
Oh my god. The
Yes.
stuff the stuff of nightmares.
Holiday has been sitting on that knowledge for quite some time.
Yeah, buddy. I love it.
And it was something that I had been thinking about for probably since the Lord of Blades fight many episodes ago. And the delicious reveals that I love to do for you all. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks again to everybody who helps us out at 2B Diced, all our DMs, all our players, and all our KJs that help upload these onto. Oh, I'm not supposed to reveal that they're all clones. Okay, I'm sorry. Shoot, I did it again. Okay. There's only one KJ. There's certainly not a multiple,
Multiverse?
copied materials that we made. That's not a thing.
Put down the shovel, Michael. Put down the shovel.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We will catch you in 2 weeks for the next episode. And until then, remember that your adventure is out there, and what can be determined in the future remains to be diced. We'll see you next time.